Welcome to the DataDistillr Masterclass series. It's a cool series. What we try to do is each week, or sometimes it's multiple times a week, we bring together thought leaders and we talk about data. And what I wanted to do today was bring together a show that Laura and I, one of my coworkers, have been talking about for a couple of weeks. And I think we have the right title. It's the artist behind the data. And I think this is an interesting point of view to bring through the Masterclass series. And with us is Laura Stevenson. She helps bring the data to a creative life and storytell it. So she and I work together on a couple of customers, and Laura's a former artist. We're super excited to have you on the show. So Laura, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here, and I'm very excited about today's topic.
It's a creative topic. I can tell you that thing. And I like how we got to there in one of our prep shows of like, well, how should we story arc this? And we want to talk about the artist behind the data. And I think that is an interesting topic because you are an artist. I was thinking like former artist, but I think you're always an artist. You can't be previously. You're an artist. So, and what an incredible journey. So, our customers know you, our partners know you, but let's kind of introduce you to future customers and partners. And this is Laura. So Laura, I'd love to hear first a little bit about the story of the creativity that you have. When did you know? Tell us about that journey.
Yeah. So my background is slightly unconventional.
Yeah.
I come from a background in graphic design and in computer science. So in undergrad, I was doing both. And then when I went on to graduate school, I was eager to combine those two interests. So I was using code as my medium to create artwork about the cognitive strengths associated with dyslexia. And I realized
Now,
that,
were
sorry.
you dyslexic? Were you dyslexic?
Yes, I am dyslexic.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting. What a great story. So you started the artist journey, you're dyslexic to code. There's a lot here, everybody. And Laura, just thank you for sharing that. So go back to that journey, but thank you for sharing that with me and the audience. We're going to go back there.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, I was using code as my medium to create art, and the subject matter of that art was dyslexia and the strengths associated with dyslexia. And after a few years of doing that, I realized that my favorite part of my work was writing code. It was building things. So that's when I decided to pursue software engineering as a career. So after graduate school, I spent the next couple of years expanding my skill set. I learned SQL, I learned how to work with data, and then I found DataDistillr, which is sort of the perfect intersection of those three things. My role here is a front-end software engineer. So I get to write code, I get to build things, I get to exercise my design background, but I also get to work with data scientists and learn more about data. So it's really sort of the perfect thing for me.
What part of that journey was scary? Because there are a lot of graphic designers I know that wouldn't take the chance to become an engineer. So what a great journey. Which part of it, or is it still scary?
Oh, it's scary every single day. Everything is scary. This is scary, but I think it's it's important to do scary things, and to sort of get out of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
But I would say in terms of the scariest part, like I said before, I have dyslexia, and so when I initially was considering software engineering, like in undergrad, I was sort of like writing code. This is something for smart people, and I'm not smart. But the more I learned about dyslexia, the more I realized that there are strengths associated with it, and those strengths lend themselves to software engineering. So that sort of gave me the reinforcement I needed to really pursue it as a career, rather than having it as a hobby and just something that I knew that I enjoyed.
Well, I can tell you, we at DataDistillr are happy you pursued that as a career. I love working with you. I know the team loves working with you, and being able to take complicated data. I mean, DataDistillr queries and joins any data set. That's the first part. Now you're going to join it. Now we want to story tell it. So I'd love for you to maybe walk us through the thinking that you go through as you kind of helped kind of lead that dashboard team and the visualization of the data. There's a lot there, but pick that up wherever you want.
Yeah, absolutely. I think here at DataDistillr, the number one thing we're always trying to do is speed up the process of gaining insight on your data, right? So that's always top of mind when we're designing things. But on top of that, another thing that we need to listen for and think about are sort of the nuances and the specific pain points that each company is facing, and really aim to build things that alleviate those pain points. And on top of that, doing that in a way that also incorporates a very sleek and beautiful GUI, and something that is fun and satisfying to use. I think that when you do that, you transform these moments of, frustration of having to do this super tedious task into something that is not only easy to do, but is also fun and enjoyable and keeps people coming back.
Is there a color you like when it comes to a dashboard? Because I'm a red, yellow, green type of guy. I know that you've spent a lot of time being able to give us a great color palette, but is there a color that you like to lead with?
Well, sort of related, I love things in dark mode. I just think when there's like a dark backdrop and white text or something like that, it just really jumps off the page. I love it. That's my personal taste. And I love our colors. I love sort of like the teal and the purple together. I think it's so beautiful, and it's unique and it's modern and all of the good things. But when you're designing for data visualization, you have to have a wide selection of colors so that your pieces of data can be distinct and easily identifiable. So while I have my preferences, they don't always align with what is best for the data visualization. So you have to provide options.
I love, and for everyone who's on our system knows that there's a huge color palette and a big array of how to bring it to light, and that's why we wanted everyone to meet Laura. Laura is that person it's the artist behind the data, and an artist who could have done exceptionally well as a graphic designer. That is a great field, and took a chance to become an engineer. And I think this goes to a lot of things that we've talked about offline as well, about STEM and women in engineering and women who code. Not enough. It's getting better. But any advice that you would give to other maybe women in that communications major or graphic design major getting ready to graduate? Any advice that you would give?
Yeah, absolutely. And this kind of goes back to what we mentioned earlier about doing things that are scary. I think something that is so important for both men and women is to push yourself outside of your comfort zone, because if you're not uncomfortable, then you're not growing, right? And I think this is particularly important for women because when you enter, any STEM field, really, you're going to enter a lot of male-dominated spaces where maybe you're the only woman in the room, right? And that's not a comfortable experience. But it's important to continue to do it so that one day you'll walk into that room and you'll be the most confident person in there. So that's one piece of advice. And then the second thing that I would say, sort of on the contrary to that, is if you can cultivate sort of safe spaces and surround yourself with other women, it's going to be very helpful to come back to a space where everybody is kind of going through the same thing that you're going through. So pushing yourself outside of your comfort zone, but then having a safe space to kind of come back to and reflect are the two pieces of advice that I would give.
I think it's well said. One of the things that I think about as you're in school and getting ready to go to the workforce, and then as you're in the workforce for many years and you look back, I always think about the major that I had, the money I spent, and how the tech that I learned doesn't exist anymore. It is now like a clug. So, I mean, if you think about graphic design, I don't know what you were doing, but I just wonder how many things that you had to learn that now there is some startup that created how to build a website with point and click, and think about everyone that spent all that money learning web design. It's just, are there tools that you did in graphic design that now,
Oh yeah.
some company just does it as drag and drop? I mean, think about even like a Miro board or like Figma. Just think about things that we do that you got to learn to code. It breaks my heart.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Figma is huge. I love that tool so much. But that did sort of eliminate a lot of the things that I learned. I also remember we learned like Flash for animations for like, that's not a thing anymore. So little things like that, which is funny, but I don't see those, the fact that I learned those skills as being a waste, because I do think when you're learning, especially something like software engineering, you're learning how to think more than you're learning, the single framework or the single language that you're using.
I'm glad you said that, because people that have worked with you and our team and customers understand you have a great sense of design. You have a great sense of how to bring it together. So it's almost tool agnostic. You either understand how to create your own fonts, typography, color, and space, and then these tools help you maybe get there faster. But your sense of design, your eye for that detail, I think it's also one of the reasons why we continue to win. Is the visualization is exceptional. But I think I think a tool can only do so much. I still think the human artist has to be able to bring that together.
Oh, absolutely. And what you said about detail, I think that attention to detail is so important when you're designing something. I think that the smallest, most subtle details can have a huge impact on a user experience. So when I'm building something and I'm clicking through a particular user flow, I like to really listen to my instincts and my intuition and sort of think about, okay, why does this part feel a little bit off? Or why does this part feel a little bit clunky to me? And oftentimes those problems are solved by adding just the littlest detail, like an animation that indicates something is loading, or tweaking the colors just a little bit. So things like that, I feel like are super important to keep in mind when you're building a product like ours.
Oh, Sam, I mean, it's important that you can access the data. That's the reason why our phone rings off the hook. But at the end of the day, they want to know, great, how do I visualize it? How do I create a dashboard for our executive team? How do we tell the story? I can see we have one of the chats also is about it's also about solving the problem. And part of the way to solve the problem is you need to be able to articulate it to people who don't code.
Right.
And I think that's why the strengths of what you bring is meaningful.
Right, absolutely. Being able to articulate these technical concept in a way that is non-technical is huge. It's super important. And a way that I kind of think helps me and anyone get there is having sort of an analog process when it comes to brainstorming or when you're in the planning phase of writing code.
Tell me about that. Tell us what does that mean?
Yeah, so when I'm presented with a problem or somebody asks me to build a feature, before writing code, I'll sort of step back from the computer for a bit, and on a piece of paper or on a whiteboard, I will draw out a diagram of what I'm going to do and how I'm going to build the thing. And in each section of the diagram, I'll write out in English, not in code, the steps of what needs to happen in that area, so that when I go to write the code, I have a map of what I'm doing and I don't get lost. And like you said earlier, it also helps me communicate sort of the plan to non-technical team members or non-technical clients, which is huge. So it's a process that really works for me, and I would totally recommend it to anyone.
It's being able to communicate to non-technical people. I think it's important. We view charts on our cell phone. We view charts in an email as an attachment. We view them in a conference room. We view them in a ballroom. Now that we're on this work from home, we're viewing them in like in a share screen. So all of these little color positioning, the types of charts, the speed of which you can share to everyone watching. Laura is the artist behind the data. So, and Laura, we're just lucky to have you on our team to bring that background. The journey is spot on. It's someone who's really strong in design that took the chance, and it actually makes sense that you took another chance to join an early stage company. So not only do you take a chance with the career, but the people you want to associate yourself with, you're taking a chance. So we definitely appreciate that. And I also think you gave the right advice to women coming out, future leaders as well. So this is the DataDistillr Masterclass series. We wanted our audience to meet one of our team members. She's on the data visualization team. She's part of the customer success team, and she's, again, one of the big reasons that we're winning when it comes to delighting. So Laura, thank you so much for being on the show. We've talked about this. We talk about this offline. We talk about this on Slack. So we want to thank you for letting you turn the camera on, talk about it. And is there anything else you want to say before we close?
Just thank you so much for having me on the show. It was so much fun. And that's it.
No. Thank you. So listen, you can find us at datadistillr.com. That's number one. We are also an Oracle Cloud partner. You can find us on the Oracle Cloud Marketplace. And as you're kind of thinking about how to bring your data to life, the good and the bad, the ugly, I wanted everyone to put a face with the visualization. So as you're kind of going through your challenges, you can find us online. You can find us at datadistillr.com. And then if there's a data visualization problem, we'll make sure we connect you with Laura, and she can help solve a lot of these challenges that you have. So Laura, thanks again for being on the show. And this is, again, the DataDistillr Masterclass series. Thanks for watching.
Thank you.